My childhood love pushed me away, so I found comfort in her sister's arms. Yet deep in my bones I feel the truth. Mia, the girl I thought was meant for me, is slipping through my fingers. My whole life there's been a girl next door. Actually, two of them. Mia was my age, my other half since we were toddlers running through sprinklers in our shared backyard. Her older sister, Chloe, was 3 years ahead of us, the cool, kind big sister we both looked up to. It wasn't just us kids, either. Our parents worked at the same firm and were the kind of best friends who didn't even need to knock. So, the three of us, Chloe, Mia, and me, we were a package deal. We shared family dinners, walked to school in a little pack, built forts in the summer and snowmen in the winter. Every single memory I have from my childhood has them in it. That perfect little world of ours fractured the day Chloe left for college on the East Coast. My hazy, half-formed crush on her didn't stand a chance against that kind of distance. It just sort of dissolved into this quiet background ache. Suddenly it was just me and Mia. We were 16, navigating that hormonal minefield of an age where every feeling is cranked up to 11. And I fell for her. Hard. Maybe it was the weight of all our shared history, or the simple fact that she was genuinely beautiful, with a laugh that could make you forget your own name. Maybe it was just that she clicked with every single thing I found attractive. Whatever it was, she became the only person I could see. From the first day of junior year, my one mission was to make her my girlfriend. But Mia, she was a strange mix. She was a hopeless romantic who also had this fiercely practical side. She'd drop hints that she felt the same, her eyes would soften when she looked at me, but then she'd always pull back with, "We're too young, Leo. We can't get serious yet." I remember one afternoon, the sun was almost ridiculously bright, and I was driving her to the library in my beat-up sedan that smelled like old air fresheners and hope. We found a quiet table tucked in a corner, right under an AC vent. The cool air kept blowing these little strands of her hair across her face as she read, and she looked so peaceful, so perfect that I just stared. On an impulse I still don't fully understand, the words I'd been wrestling with for months just escaped. "Mia, will you be my girlfriend?" The second the words were out, a tidal wave of regret washed over me. I shot a panicked glance around, terrified someone had heard, but we were alone in our little corner. I cautiously looked back at her. She was just staring at me, her big brown eyes wide with shock. My heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest, and I couldn't manage another word. I just waited for the verdict. "We're still so young," she said finally. Her words hit me like a bucket of ice water. She's going to say no. The bottom dropped out of my stomach, and I ducked my head, already trying to figure out how to play it off as a joke. But then she added, and I looked up. "If you ask me again after graduation on the 50-yard line in front of the whole school, I might just say yes." Before I could even process what she'd said, she stuck her tongue out playfully, and a bright, beautiful smile bloomed across her face. The afternoon sun was streaming through the library window, catching the blush on her cheeks and lighting up the tips of her ears, which had turned a deep, adorable shade of red. A wave of pure, unfiltered joy crashed over me. I shot up from my chair. If we hadn't been in a dead-silent library, I probably would have screamed. "Deal," I managed to say, my voice choked with an emotion I couldn't name. "I'll give you the most epic proposal this school has ever seen." We were 17. The age where you believe love is a perfect, unbreakable fairy tale. From that day on, Mia and I had this secret, unspoken pact. We drove to school together, came home together, shared milk teas, and did our homework side by side at my kitchen table. Our bond felt deeper, more real than anything I'd ever known. I was completely convinced that with our history, with this being our first real love, we'd be holding hands until we were old and gray. But in the second half of senior year, that perfect picture started to get smudged. It started with a sophomore named Josh. He saw Mia once and was instantly hooked. He knew I was in the picture, so he couldn't be direct. Instead, he became a master of the chance encounter. He just happened to be on our route to school. He'd magically appear by our classroom during passing periods. He'd bump into us on the way home. These calculated moments, sprinkled with small gifts and a constant stream of compliments, started to wear Mia down. She'd always been a sucker for big romantic gestures. It's why she wanted the 50-yard line proposal in the first place. I'll admit, I'm not the smoothest talker. I couldn't flatter her the way Josh did. I didn't have that shameless persistence he used to chase after girls. But my biggest strength is knowing when to cut my losses. I knew Mia better than anyone. The moment I saw her start to waver, I began to pull back my own feelings, redirecting all that energy into studying. My dad had this saying, if you ever feel insecure next to the person you like, you work on yourself, not spiral. Spiraling just makes them lose respect for you. Self-improvement is the only way to close the distance. Maybe he'd seen it all along, that Mia wasn't the type to settle down easily. Soon Mia started letting Josh join us for lunch. She'd still sit next to me, but her attention, her laughter, it was all pointed at him. Watching her light up while talking to him went from feeling like a knife in the gut to a dull familiar ache. It's not that I didn't say anything. I told her she was getting too close to him, but she'd just wave it off. He's just a sophomore, Leo. I'm not going to fall for him. Her words left me speechless. You won't fall for him, but the way you look at him says you already have. My heart would ache, but I'd force it back to a state of calm. If this pure thing we had was already tainted, then it was time to let go. What isn't meant to be yours will never be yours. Letting go is the best way to start over. I shut out all the noise and threw myself into a fortress of SAT prep books and college applications. My conversations with Mia became shorter, less frequent. She didn't even seem to notice. Even though we sat next to each other in class, she spent every spare moment running out to the hallway to talk to Josh, leaving me alone at my desk, grinding through practice tests. Mia and Chloe were similar in one way. They were both naturally smart. Mia could cruise through classes with me and still beat me by a solid margin on every test. If I wanted to get into Northgate University, where Chloe was, I'd have to work twice as hard. Stacks of practice exams and a graveyard of empty pens on my desk were a testament to my effort. I was dreaming in calculus problems. Mia pointed it out once or twice, then gave up and focused her attention on Josh. At night after dinner, I'd sit at my desk buried in books. Sometimes when my eyes got tired, I'd look up at the window next door Mia's room. She used to sit at her desk facing her window. Whenever I'd look up, she'd somehow sense it and look up too. She'd give me a sweet smile or make a goofy face, and it would make my whole night, motivating me to study even harder. But now her chair was always empty. She was probably on her phone, smiling at texts from Josh. Even though I decided to move on, there was this sour knot in my stomach. I'd shake my head trying to clear the feeling and focus on my parents, on how hard they worked for all these years. No matter how exhausted they were, they always came home, made dinner, and had a hot meal on the table for me. Whenever I tried to help with the dishes, my mom would gently push me back toward my room, telling me my only job was to study. To give me an extra edge, my dad spent a fortune on an online tutor. I overheard them talking about it one night. The course was only a few weeks, but it cost him 2 months' salary, all just to help me get a slightly higher score. After that, I went back to my desk, focused on the problems in front of me, and didn't look out the window again. As application deadlines got closer, Mia complained from the passenger seat one day that I'd been acting weird. It's crunch time, I said flatly. I don't have the energy for anything else. She scoffed. You're not seriously still trying for Northgate, are you, Leo? My sister is way smarter than me and she barely got in. Just let it go. We should be aiming for a state school. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the look in her eyes. It was pity bordering on contempt. In that single moment, she wasn't my Mia anymore. She was someone looking down on me from a great height. It was just a goal, I said, refusing to argue. My practice scores were still about 200 points shy of Northgate's average. She was right, it was a long shot. She seemed to realize she'd overstepped and started to backtrack. But just then Josh pulled up alongside us on his bike. Her attention immediately shifted. The rest of the way to school, she laughed and joked with him out the open window. I just drove in silence. She was sitting in my car, but her heart was with another guy. When Josh even had the nerve to ask if she wanted a ride on the back of his bike, she actually hesitated for a second before saying no. The final week before applications were due, Josh came to find Mia after school. Mia, he said, using that overly familiar tone she used to hate from anyone but me. You'll be gone at college soon. Can I at least be the one to take you to and from school for this last week? She didn't even seem to notice he'd crossed that line. She just glanced at me, a look of conflict on her face. It's fine, I said, not even looking up from my book. You go with him. It'll save me some gas and give me more time to study. She hesitated for another moment then agreed. For that whole week, she rode on the back of Josh's bike. I started leaving for school a few minutes earlier each day, deliberately avoiding them. The first morning Mia stormed into class and glared at me. I just glanced at her once before turning back to my work. We barely spoke that week. At lunch she sat with Josh. My friends kept asking what was going on, and I'd just brush it off. Mia and I are just neighbors. With my mind clear of distractions, I focused completely on my applications. When the deadline finally arrived, my parents checked and rechecked my backpack for my laptop and login info. My heart filled with nothing but gratitude for them. You can do this, I told myself walking into the computer lab. I felt surprisingly calm as I filled out the forms and attached my essays. After 3 intense hours of submitting applications, my parents didn't ask if it was hard. They just pulled me into a huge hug and started talking about where we should go for a celebratory trip. I just smiled and said I wanted to sleep. My dad clapped me on the shoulder, and my mom hurried me into the car. Back home I crashed and slept until I woke up naturally, feeling completely refreshed. The tension of the last year had finally lifted. I finally rolled out of bed around noon when I heard voices in the living room. Mia's parents were over, planning a joint family vacation with my mom and dad. When they saw me, they lit up, asking why I hadn't been over to see Mia lately. I just smiled and said studying was more important, but now that applications were in, I'd have more time. Mia's mom pulled me down to sit next to her. She asked where I wanted to go, and I thought for a second. Maybe a trip to see the national parks out west, like Yosemite. Her smile got even bigger. She exchanged a look with her husband and said Mia had suggested the exact same thing. So it was decided. Both families would go to Yosemite for a week. Chloe would be home in a couple of days and we could all go together. 2 days later, Chloe was back, as gentle and warm as ever. The first thing she did was hand me a small box. Inside was a limited edition action figure I'd been wanting for ages. I carefully set it down and in a burst of excitement, I gave her a quick, tight hug. I realized what I'd done and immediately let go. Just in time to see Mia watching us with a sour expression. "It's okay, Leo," Chloe said with a soft laugh. "It's not like you haven't hugged me before." Her words made me blush. Looking at her fair, pretty face, my heart did a little flip. When we set off, both families in their respective cars, Mia didn't come over to ride with me like she always used to. My mom, noticing our car only had 3 people, jokingly called out, asking if one of them wanted to join us to liven things up. To my surprise, Chloe started walking over. Seeing that, Mia jumped out of her car and ran to ours too. So I ended up sitting in the back, sandwiched between the 2 sisters. The atmosphere, however, was anything but harmonious. I found myself constantly turning toward Chloe, asking her about college life. She answered everything with a gentle warmth, sharing funny stories and interesting details. We talked and laughed easily, and the complete lack of awkwardness between us seemed to irritate Mia, but no one was paying attention to her. I was completely absorbed in my conversation with Chloe. The big sister who had always looked out for me was still the same person I remembered. The months apart hadn't created any distance at all. The trip was a blast for everyone except Mia, who seemed to be in a perpetually bad mood. The only time her expression changed was when her phone buzzed, and she'd retreat into a corner, smiling and texting for hours. Chloe watched her thoughtfully for a long time, and then her gaze shifted strangely to me. But I was too busy taking in the majestic views of the valley to notice. The week flew by. On the drive home, I was grinning like an idiot at a picture on my phone. It was a photo of Chloe and me on a boat on one of the lakes. I was excitedly pointing at something in the distance, and she was looking at me with this soft, gentle smile. The affection in her eyes was captivating. The picture just radiated this effortless intimacy. There were plenty of photos from the trip, but only a few with Chloe and only one with Mia, a candid shot her mom had taken. In it, Mia looked distant, her attention glued to her phone. I was turned toward Chloe, and though we were only a foot apart, we might as well have been in different worlds. When Mia saw that photo later, she froze. She looked at me with a flicker of guilt, but I was too busy admiring the pictures on my phone to care. After that, Mia started coming over all the time. She'd hang out at my house or invite me over for dinner. I didn't refuse, but I kept a careful, polite distance. The easy intimacy we once had was gone. We were just friends. Her mood soured, though she tried her best to act cheerful around me. This went on for a few days. On the morning we had to go to the school to officially accept our college offers, Mia was waiting for me at my door. "Leo?" she asked halfway to school, suddenly wrapping her arms around my waist from the passenger seat, her voice thick with an emotion I couldn't place. "Are you going to keep your promise?" She was holding on so tight it was hard to drive. I pulled the car over. "We made a deal. You can't go back on your word." Her eyes were red-rimmed, and the wind had messed up her hair, giving her a look of fragile beauty. I looked at this girl I'd known my entire life, and for a fleeting moment, I felt an impulse to give in, to be reckless one more time. She was my entire youth. "Okay," I finally said, my voice low after a long internal battle. I decided to give her one last chance. When we got to the school gym, my guidance counselor saw me and immediately pulled me aside, talking excitedly. Mia's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, said she had to use the restroom, and hurried off. My counselor was gushing about my final SAT scores, announcing them proudly to everyone in earshot. My classmates stared at me in shock. I had jumped over 200 points from my last practice test. Getting into Northgate was no longer a long shot. It was a sure thing. I submitted my acceptance, but Mia still hadn't come back. I pulled out my phone and called her. She said she was on the football field and would be right back. With nothing else to do, I took her acceptance form and went to find her. As I got closer, I saw a large crowd gathered in the middle of the field. Mia was standing in the center of it all. Josh was in front of her, holding a huge bouquet of flowers, in the middle of a very public confession. Mia was biting her lip, looking torn. I thought about it for a second, then reached into my pocket. It was a gift I'd bought a long time ago. A delicate silver necklace she'd once said she loved. It was time to make good on my promise. The choice was hers. "Mia, I really like you. Will you be my girlfriend?" I strode forward, walking right past Josh as if he didn't exist, and held the open box out to her. Josh's face darkened. When he saw the flicker of delight in Mia's eyes, he panicked and whispered something to her that I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, her expression changed. Her eyes darted to a girl standing nearby. And then she reached out and took the flowers from Josh. She didn't say a word, but the message was clear. I let out a dry, self-deprecating laugh. "Well, Mia, I kept my promise." I tossed the necklace box onto the grass, shoved her acceptance form into her hand, and turned and walked away without looking back. I could feel the eyes of the other students on me. Pity, disdain, contempt. I felt nothing. I had honored my word. She had thrown away her last chance. From now on, we were just neighbors. It wasn't long before Mia showed up in my room. Leo, Josh's sister, was there. I was afraid he'd be embarrassed, so that's the only reason I did it. "Don't be mad." I almost laughed. She moved closer, grabbing my arm, whining playfully. "Come on, Leo. I know I messed up. It was just this once. I promise it'll never happen again. Just ask me one more time. I'll say yes, I swear." Her soft, pleading voice just made my skin crawl. The thought that she probably used the same tone with Josh filled me with irritation. "Mom, Mia has plans later. She can't stay for dinner," I said, cutting in before she could accept my mom's invitation. The look on her face was pained. Her phone started blowing up with texts, long rambling essays of excuses. I replied with one sentence. "Did you ever stop to think that maybe I would be embarrassed?" Then I put my phone down and didn't read another message she sent. For the rest of the summer, I got a job at a mall a few towns over. We didn't see each other once. The first time we did was when I got my first real paycheck and took Chloe out to celebrate. Mia tagged along. Her phone buzzed constantly, but she ignored it every time. Then her ringtone went off. She rejected the call twice. The third time she answered in a hushed, annoyed tone. I don't know what was said, but her face fell. She hung up, flagged down a cab, and mumbled something about a friend getting into town before leaving us there. Chloe didn't seem bothered. Instead, she casually took my hand. "There's too much traffic here. I'll feel better holding on." It felt like it was 7 years ago, when she would hold my hand on the way home from school. Back then it felt safe. Now it made my heart race. Her hand was so soft in mine. After dinner, Chloe stopped at a jewelry counter and bought me a watch. When I saw the price tag was over $1,000, my jaw dropped. "This is an investment," she said with a playful smirk. "It'll last for years. Not like spending a fortune on a single meal." She carefully fastened it on my wrist before paying with a satisfied smile. On our way out we saw Mia. She was holding hands with Josh. Chloe looked at them, then turned and looked at me. I felt nothing. "Mia," Chloe called out, walking straight toward them. When Mia saw us, her face went white. She immediately dropped Josh's hand. "My friend had to leave and I was on my way to find you guys when I ran into them," she explained a little too quickly. I instinctively pulled my arm back when she tried to grab it, and a hurt look flashed across her face. As the start of the semester approached, I went over to their house, suitcase in tow. You too," Mia stammered, staring at me and Chloe standing there with our luggage. I just smiled and held up my Northgate University acceptance letter. "Time to head to campus. Chloe and I are traveling together." The letter made her face drain of all color. "Leo, you promised we'd go to the same college." "First," I said, holding up a finger, "you rejected my proposal. Second, I said we'd go to college, not the same college." "No, Leo, you can't do this. If you leave, what about me?" I was genuinely baffled. "You rejected me. We're not even together. What are you talking about?" I grabbed my suitcase and started for the door. Chloe patted her sister's shoulder side and got in the car with me. Mia just stood there on her porch watching us drive away. After a long journey, Chloe and I finally stepped onto the Northgate campus. She expertly guided me through registration and even made my bed in my dorm. My new roommates looked on with envy, whispering about how my girlfriend was so thoughtful. I didn't bother correcting them. Part of me was thrilled. From then on, Chloe and I fell into a routine. We'd eat together, take walks around campus. The rumor that we were a couple spread like wildfire. I was about to explain it to a friend one day, but Chloe just looped her arm through mine. That settled that. Her face was a little flushed. She explained that a few guys had been relentlessly hitting on her, and she was hoping I could act as a shield. "Well, if I'm your shield, I'll never be able to get a girlfriend," I joked. "Maybe you should just be my girlfriend for real, Chloe." She stared at me for a long moment. Then so quietly I almost missed it, she said, "Okay." I stopped walking, looking at her in disbelief. "Don't forget I grew up with you too," she said, her gentle eyes full of conviction. "Doesn't that make us childhood sweethearts too? Why can't I like you?" I was so touched that I just pulled her into a hug. "Thank you for liking me, Chloe." And just like that, we were together. A couple of months later, Chloe started an internship and decided to rent an apartment nearby. Then she asked if I wanted to move in with her. The thought consumed me. I immediately agreed. We found a small apartment just big enough for the two of us and decorated it together. Looking around the cozy space we created, I felt like I was in a dream. The reality didn't fully hit me until she came out of the bathroom after a shower. Her face flushed, and shyly told me it was my turn. From that day on, we were like a little married couple. We knew each other so well we never fought. We were just incredibly compatible. Before we knew it, it was winter break. On the train ride home, I told Chloe I was going to tell our parents about us. She hesitated. "What about my sister?" she asked. "What about her?" I said. "There's nothing between us." She finally nodded. At the family dinner, Chloe and I sat together, but Mia insisted on squeezing in next to me. As she sat down, she saw our hands intertwined under the table. The color drained from her face. When Mia's mom mentioned Chloe should start thinking about finding a boyfriend, Chloe stood up, holding up our joined hands. "Leo and I are together," she announced. The statement stunned our parents into silence. Then a moment later, they all broke into joyous laughter. Our dads immediately raised their glasses, talking about us becoming family, about weddings and grandkids. Mia, however, didn't smile once. Later that night, the shouting started. Mia and Chloe were having their first ever real fight. "Leo loves me. He asked me out. How could you steal him from me?" Mia shrieked. "So what if he asked you out? You didn't say yes," Chloe retorted. I walked over and took Chloe's hand. "Mia, the only reason I asked you was because you told me to," I said calmly. "You rejected me. Why are you making a scene now?" My words seemed to deflate her. That night, Chloe came home with me. It was her official introduction to my parents as my girlfriend. She ignored Mia for the rest of the break. Just before we left, Mia showed up at my door asking us to come outside. Waiting there were Josh and his sister. He just asked me to pretend to be his girlfriend, Mia said, trying to clear the air. Josh just frowned. Pretend? Mia, you agreed. Now you're backing out. I've always seen you as just a younger friend, Mia said, her voice firm. Just a friend. Josh shot back. You came to my classroom every day. You texted me constantly. When I got hurt, you drove 30 miles to see me and told my sister you felt bad for not taking better care of me as your girlfriend. Mia's face went white. Josh started yelling at me, accusing me of forcing her to do this. Excuse me, I said calmly, holding up my hand which was clasped in Chloe's. On both of our fingers, engagement rings glittered in the sun. Chloe and I are getting engaged tomorrow. Your business is your own. Josh was struck dumb. 3 years later, the day after my college graduation, Chloe and I got married. Mia was the maid of honor. She gave us a heartfelt blessing, but as I watched Chloe walk down the aisle, looking absolutely radiant, I saw Mia in the audience crying her eyes out, her mother trying in vain to comfort her. After the wedding, we moved into our new house. Mia, showing no interest in dating, moved into the house next door. When our son was born, Mia was a constant presence, helping with the baby and the housework. Chloe tried to talk to her about finding a boyfriend, but Mia would just smile, shake her head, and continue cooing at our son, a look of pure joy on her face. Having her around saved us so much time and energy that eventually, we stopped trying to persuade her otherwise. One Saturday night, Chloe and I came home from a much-needed date night. As we quietly opened the door, we heard a conversation from the living room. Say mama, sweetie. Can you say mama? And then our son's little voice, clear as day. Mama. Chloe and I froze in the doorway, staring at Mia holding our son, beaming with a pride that was unsettling. We looked at each other, and for the first time in a long time we had absolutely no idea what to say. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the beautiful stories.